seen it at least 3 times. For those not familiar with the movie, Coco was inspired by the sacred Day of the Dead, celebrated in Mexico. And the story follows a 12-year-old boy named Miguel who's accidentally transported to the land of the dead. In this land, he looks for help from his great-grandfather to return Miguel to his family among the living and reverse his family's ban on music. One of the reasons Miguel's family has banned music is because through the evil deeds of others, Miguel's great-great-grandfather left Coco, his daughter and Miguel's great-grandmother, and his wife, never to return again. And one of the best parts of the movie is when Miguel bursts into his great-grandmother Coco's room to sing the song that her father sang to her, Remember Me. And we're going to see a clip of that now. Okay. Miguel picks up his guitar and he starts to sing Remember Me. And as you can see, his great-grandmother is not too alert, but as she continues to hear the words, she responds to the song that her great-grandson is singing. And everybody looks in awe as he continues to sing. And he continues to sing because he's reminding her, not just of the song that her father sang to her, but of the love that her father had for her. She remembers the song. She pulls out a sliver of a picture that she has hidden in her book for many years since she was a little girl. She pulls a sliver of that picture out and gives it to her great-grandson. And he remembers that the picture that he has, there's a corner of it torn off. And so the picture, the sliver of the picture that she gives him is the piece that completes their family photo.
Came to church early, it all worked before church. I swear it did. It all worked in the warm-up.
Today on this All Saints Sunday, we remember those who died in the Lord and their encouragement to us through their witness to write a vision for our lives. A vision centered in God and God's purpose for us. God reminds the prophet Habakkuk to write the vision God has given him. And not much is known about the historical significance of this book. But what is known is that the prophet Habakkuk is crying out to God against the international chaos and devastation that he sees all around him. And it likely is stemming from the rise of the Babylonian Empire. We can relate to Habakkuk's words in some way, both personally and in our world. Listen as I read them again. God, how long do I have to cry out for help before you listen? How many times do I have to yell help, murder, police, before you come to the rescue? Why do you force me to look at evil, stare trouble in the face day after day? Anarchy and violence break out, quarrels and fights all over the place. Habakkuk challenges God to give him an answer, one that will both comfort and resolve everything that's going on around him. God gives, and to wait for the vision to reveal itself at God's appointed time. God tells Habakkuk this: write this. Write what you see. Write it out in big block letters so that it can be read on the run. If it seems slow in coming, wait. It's on its way. It will come right on time. In the midst of the chaos all around Habakkuk, God reminds him to write the vision God gave him, and he reminds the prophet of who he is, saying this: look at that man, bloated by self-importance, full of himself, but soul empty. But the person in right standing before God, through loyal and steady believing, is fully alive. Really alive. It's so easy for us, like Habakkuk, to grow overwhelmed and discouraged by personal and national and international chaos all around us. It's so easy for us to forget that God has a vision for us as God's people, which is to be in right relationship with God and others all the time. It's easy for us to forget God's vision for us when we see national and international disasters all around us. When we see the California wildfires that continue to rage in Southern California. When we see the deaths of giants in the faith and national government like Representative Elijah Cummings and Representative John Conyers. It's easy for us to forget God's vision for us when we watch the news and hear about the latest presidential cabinet changes and impeachment inquiries. It's easy for us to forget God's vision for us as God's people when we hear about the shooting of a 7-year-old girl in Chicago on Halloween at the hands of a 15-year-old boy. It's easy for us to forget God's vision for us as God's people when we hear about the latest study from the Center for Disease Control that the suicide rate has tripled for kids ages 10 to 14 years old. When we hear about all these things, it leaves us feeling heavy and helpless. And like any efforts that we do to make things better are a waste of time. When we hear about all these things, we feel alone. Like we're the first ones to ever hear about any chaos like this, and nothing can or will ever get better. In these times, we hear echoes of Habakkuk loud and strong. God, how long do I have to cry out for help before you listen? How many times do I have to yell help, murder, police, before you come to the rescue? Church, praise God, we know and serve a God who hears and answers us. Amen? Amen. Praise God, we know and serve a God who doesn't make us wait forever, although it may feel like forever, and whose timing is sure and faithful. Praise God that at the appointed time, after a long 400-year wait, God sent the vision to save and to free and to heal all humanity found in Jesus, the hope for all in the midst of this chaotic and dark world. God's vision to reconcile and save all humanity has been, is, and always will be Jesus Christ, who breaks into our lives every day by God's Spirit, working even when we can't see God working. God's vision for us and all humanity is to remember. Remember what Jesus has done. Remember that Jesus never leaves us or abandons us. God's vision for us is to remember that God's love and grace is always healing and always renewing and always saving and always casting a vision, even when we got to wait a long time for that vision to be realized. God's vision for us is to remember the saints who've gone before us, using their lives as God's faithful people to show us the way God wants us to go. Constantly reminding us of God's vision when we can't remember, when we can't see it, when we can't write it for ourselves. Saints that have gone before before us remind us that God's vision for our lives and for our families and for our community and for our church and our world is to come into relationship with Jesus Christ, sharing his love and making disciples to transform the world in Jesus' name. God's vision for each of us is wide and it's expansive, allowing us to share and reflect God's love in different ways. Dora Elizabeth Wormley, my grandmother and a disciple of Jesus, was buried 11 years ago this past Friday, November the 1st. Dora lived out God's vision for her life through loving her family and teaching her 5 children about Jesus and praying with and for members of her church and community and holding a homemaker circle in her house to fellowship with other women and encourage them. Norm Kramer, a member here and a disciple of Jesus, died in August. And this past Friday, November 1st, Atlantic County Executive Dennis Levinson renamed the Senior Center the Lion Weber Kramer Senior Center and Nutrition Site in honor of Norm's 34 faithful years of volunteer service. And a 12-year member of the Atlantic County Senior Citizens Advisory Board. Norm lived out God's vision for his life through loving service to everyone in his home, at work, in this church and community. And then there's an unlikely story of an unlikely saint, St. Vincent of Sheepshead Bay, from the movie St. Vincent. And we don't have a clip. I mean, we do, but we don't. So I'm going to explain it. Vincent is a man in a neighborhood where he learned how to fight, how to gamble, how to curse. It's a very unlikely saint. And then next door to him, a single mother and her son moved in. And he wants nothing to do with it. And through the boy's constant visits with him and wanting to be his friend, they form this unlikely bond, and Vincent becomes the babysitter to this kid. And so there's a point in the movie where the boy, he goes to, I believe, a Catholic school, and they have an assignment to talk about the saints in their lives. And so the boy thinks about Vincent, and they have to present it in an auditorium full of people, and the assignment is that the kids have to invite that saint to come to that gathering. And so in the movie, the clip comes up, and you see the boy coming up to the podium, and then you see Vincent coming into the auditorium and just standing at the back. Because as I told you, he's an unlikely saint. It's really not something that he does. And the boy begins to explain about Vincent's life. And he talks about how he learned how to gamble and how to fight and how to curse. On the streets, he said things that kids shouldn't know. But then he goes on to talk about his life and talk about how saints never give up. And he gives examples from Vincent's life of how he never gave up. He begins to talk about how saints sacrifice. And he talks about how Vincent served in the Vietnam War and then did laundry for his wife for 8 years before she died. And she didn't remember who he was. And then he talks about how saints really help people to love others and to serve and to have courage and compassion. And then he introduces his friend, St. Vincent of Sheepshead Bay. Church, we're all saints, really. And it's by the grace of our faithful and loving God that God's vision for us is written in the lives of the saints who've gone before us, as well as those still living who encourage us and challenge us and teach us and pray with us and for us and walk with us, calling us to grow deeper in God and calling us to remain faithful to the work God has for us to do, and calling us to never give up on God, holding on to Jesus, God's vision for our lives and for our families and for our communities and our church and our world, no matter how hard it gets. As my grandfather used to say, there's nothing new under the sun. Be encouraged, because God's vision message is a witness pointing to what's coming, and it doesn't lie. And if it seems slow in coming, just wait. It's on its way. And when it comes, it'll come right on time. Amen. And now let's